and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Hello out there. Hope you all have had a good day, evening, afternoon, whatever time frame you may be in. I'd like to introduce myself. I am M.A. HADDAD, and I'm the author of The Shadow of the Staff. Tomorrow is just a day away, which is going to come out any day now, but it's a follow-up to my first book, which is The Shadow of the Staff, A Wizard's Revenge. Now, having done this once so far, I've found the hardest thing to do is to talk about yourself. And everybody always has questions. They want to know about an author, and they want to know when did they start writing, and all those good things. I'll try to explain that as quickly and as best I can. But like I said, it's not natural for most people to want to build themselves up or talk about themselves. So here we go. I started writing music back when I was in high school, and I had a lot of fun with that, and I used to take my guitar and go play places and play original songs. So in a way, that's where I started to write at, was back in those days, because a song really is nothing more than poetry that's been put to music. So in a way, I'd been practicing without even realize I was writing. Then I got into high school and enjoyed the English classes and writing and all of those good things and had a lot of fun with that. And my mom was always very supportive of me when I was writing. Her and I actually wrote several books together that we never published or did anything with, but they were fun. And the one I remember the most was a book about chair dancing. And we've all been places where we've seen music, a wedding reception, or a local eatery, wherever, and music comes on, and people will be dancing and scooting around in their chair. And so the whole book was based on the premise that you had to have the right kind of chair, that you didn't want to chair dance with a chair that was folding, so on and so forth. And that was my first real writing experience. Then I got out of high school, waited a few years, miscellaneous jobs, so on and so forth, and I joined the military. Once I got into the military, I became very proficient at writing decorations and award packages. Now, anybody that's ever written one of those knows that they are meticulous with how they're written. You have to use certain spaces, certain quotes, certain lines. Everything has to be in there in order for that package to go through the system. And I became very, very good at that. And so I wound up writing several dozen in my career. And then I retired and really just 6 months doing nothing, did a couple other odd jobs. And then my mom passed away. And I made a promise to myself at that time that I was going to see a project through. And I think everybody at some point in their life has started something and not seen it through. They get to a point, or at least I do, I get to a point where you're self-satisfied. And so you don't follow it any further. You don't do any more with it. So I promised myself I was going to do it this time, and I was going to write a book because my mother would appreciate that. I dedicated it to her. And the first book that I showed you and talked to you about, The Shadow of the Staff, A Wizard's Revenge, which is the first book in a series, is actually dedicated. And I wrote that in approximately 30 days. It took a longer time to get it all proofed and cleaned up, obviously. Anybody that's written knows that process can take a very long time. Reader's Magnet has been wonderful to me, and they're the third company that I've been with. and they've done more for me than anybody else has. So I'm really grateful to them for allowing me to have the opportunity to get my work out there. So that's pretty much how I came to write. And then I've written many things. I've written love songs, I've written poetry, all those things, like I said. But writing a fantasy book was a little bit different. I always liked reading Tolkien, of course, and Edgar Rice Burroughs, the John Carter of Mars series, H.G. Wells. Always liked those kind of books. So when I decided to write, I decided I was going to write a fantasy book, and I was going to create my own world where I had my own beings who ate their own kind of food, and it wasn't going to be well, it wasn't going to be the normal fantasy book, I guess, but it turned out to be anyway. So, and I'm actually happy with that. And then I started writing the second book, and the second book to me was a real challenge, and that's The Shadow of the Staff. Tomorrow is just a day away, which is the reason I'm here to talk about it. Is a book was a challenge to me because my first book kind of branched off of the type of work that Tolkien would do. And not to compare myself with him at all. I don't mean to do that. But that's it kind of went down that road, and at times the two kind of mixed up and came together very unintentionally, but it happened. With the second book now, I'm going off on my own direction, and I'm doing the things now that really I want to do. And my hope is that by doing that I'll give readers what they want the most. And I think readers want to be swept into a story. They want to feel like they're part of it. They want that story to encompass them, and they want to wonder what's next. What's going to happen to our hero? What happened here that I don't know about? What's going to happen in a few pages? And that is, to me, a lot of fun, but it's also an art. I'm getting better at it. I don't think I'll ever perfect it as some writers have, but I'm getting a lot better at it. And when I say that, I mean to say that when you create things, how do you do it? I like to take things that I'm familiar with and twist them around a little bit, such as in the book, the characters eat what I call tater meat. It's it comes out of the ground, and it tastes like meat. But tater meat is something unique to that book, to that world that I've created called HADDAD. And by doing that, I think it gives a little bit of excitement and in the adventure that you want from a fantasy novel. Not everybody wants the same thing, and that makes it very difficult at times to write. I think we all know that, or if you've written it all, you do, I believe. How do you get everyone engrossed into your story, or how do you get them to want to be that way? And I think you have to come up with a common ground. Everybody wants to read a book that they enjoy. And what that enjoyment is to one person may not be enjoyment to another, and so on and vice versa. So what I write, you may want to read and you may enjoy it. Someone else may not. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people don't want that particular genre, or they don't like that particular type of writing or the style of writing. Maybe the story's great, but I don't like your style of writing. Well, everybody has to develop their own. And that's my own personal belief, is you have to develop these things. They don't just happen. I don't believe anybody just sits down one day and goes, I'm going to write a book. And they type it up and it's perfect. There's no spelling errors, there's no grammatical errors. The flow is perfect. The reader is engrossed when they're reading the story. They feel like they're a part of it, like they belong in this world that you've created within the covers of the magazine or the book that you've written. And so in doing such, you try to encompass as much as you can. You can't always do that. It's difficult. And so you're going to have some people that say, yay, this is a great book. Well, this one, I don't know. And it's the same book. So, just my advice to anybody who wants to write fantasy novels is just hang in there and, do what you do best. And that's use your imagination. That's where 90% of my inspiration comes from, is from my own mind. You have to think back sometimes to when you were a kid. And what was it at that time that made you want to read this book? Or what did you pretend you were when you were growing up? Were you a knight in shining armor or a princess or, whatever the case may be? And you use those things because they're still in your mind. And I think that's the childhood and the childlike feelings that come out when you write fantasy, because you're in charge and you can create your world however you want to create it. And if you do it right, then people are going to read it, they're going to enjoy it. And that to me is what writing is all about as a whole, no matter what it is, with the exception of technical magazines. I think any type, love stories, all of those, readers want to be a part of it. They want to feel like they're a part of that particular book. In my case, I want them to feel like they can identify with the characters, that my characters have different personalities. They're not all the same. They don't all talk the same. They don't all act the same. They're different and they're unique in their own ways, so that there's characters that I've written that I actually don't like, but they're perfect for the book. Other characters I love. I love the way they come out on paper. I love the way they read. To me, that's an accomplishment that I like it, and I hope other people do then too. And like I said, I've even written characters that I don't like, but it's necessary to tell the entire story of what you're trying to say. And not just everybody's happy-go-lucky and everybody's a nice guy or a girl and everybody's, life is beautiful. It's not that way in the real world, and it shouldn't be that way in a fantasy novel either, in my opinion. This is only my second novel that I've ever written, and it's due out any day. I don't know exactly when, but I'm hoping within the next 3 weeks it'll be available. You can go to my webpage, which is www.mahaddadnovels.com. And there's some blogs out there, links where you can buy the books, some other information about me, a lot of those type of things. So I think having something like that to fall back on is very good as well, is having a place where people can go and find out about you. Excuse me while I do that. Anyway, in writing, one of the things also that's important is whether or not you like the subject, okay? And I think that the books are positive. I think that the book is positive, that I like the subject and I like the way that the story is being told. It's a lengthy process. It doesn't just happen overnight. I'm already working on a third book, which is going to be called the Shadow of the Staff, Torden's journey. You'll have to read the first couple books to find out who Torden is, but he's a key character, and he's going to have his own book. And his particular character is one that I didn't really base it on any real people or anybody that I know. It's kind of like a culmination of several people. He comes off as being rather stoic, but in time he loosens up and is not that same way. But he's got his reasons for being the way he is, and it's good for his character to be that way. I couldn't see presenting him any other way, to be honest. And that's the way I view most of my characters. I can't see, and I've tried to say, can I present this character in a different light? Can I change their attitude? What do I want to change about them? And as hard as I try, I can't, because by changing the character's personality or their appearance outwardly, you change the storyline. And that's something that I didn't want to do by making characters that were cookie cutter characters, as I call them. They're all basically the same, so they all talk the same, they all walk the same, they all look the same. There's nothing unique about them. And in Tomorrow Is Just a Day Away, there's a lot of uniqueness in a lot of the characters. And that's been a lot of fun for me to create those characters. And I think, in a way, part of my personality is in each and every one of them. From being a professional military person to being a class clown to having attitudes and all those things that we put into characters when we develop them. And then also you have, or at least I have, I've tried very hard to take my main character, the one that the main focus is on, and develop that character so that they get better and get better and they get better and they become more confident. They become more outward, but they still have those moments of being down to earth, as we might say. And they're not necessarily always happy with, he's not happy with the role he's put in a lot of times, but it's necessary. It's part of the storyline. So the character development is a lot of fun, and it takes a lot of time. I've been writing the third book in my head for several months now, and I'm just about ready to get started on putting it on paper and moving on, because I know how I want it to flow, so it works the way that it works with the other books. But the nice thing about Shadow of the Staff, Tomorrow Is Just a Day Away, is the inclusion of not only new characters, but new races. And I think that the reader will find that very interesting, and it will be nice for them to find out that there's other races than just one group, and these other races have their unique attributes and functions, and they do things a certain way that is different from their other races. And of course, there's elves, and there's dwarves, and there's trolls, and orcs, and a whole myriad of other characters that come into play. It's like I said, it's a lot of fun. You can get it in the hardback, just right here, and it's also in paperback, which is right there. Sorry about putting my hand over it. And you can also get it through Kindle. So if you go to Amazon.com, Books A Million, those places to pick up a copy, you can do that. If you do, I would really like to hear some feedback on my website. As there's a lot of people that will say, how long does it take to write a book? Well, my first one I wrote in 30 days, but it was like a 10-year process to get it finally published. The second one took me a good 6 to 8 months to write, and then get it proofed and sent off, and finally get it published. So, and there's a real good question here about the trickiest thing about writing characters of the opposite gender. I think that I've been able to accomplish that by a lot of the people that I've been around in the military, because I've run into all sorts of folks, and you can play off of what you remember about certain people here and there, and you kind of put them into a character. Some people want women to be demure, and they want them to be quiet, and sure, some of those are in the book. Some are more forward, some are more take charge. I think we all know people that fit into both categories of the opposite gender, and that would go for a female writing it for a male. I would imagine that would be rather difficult if you didn't have someone or something that you could draw on. So your personal experience does come into play there when it comes to going to the opposite gender, which is kind of tricky at times. But I mean, we all have an idea of what our perfect lady is. I mean, guys do anyway. But we have our idea of what someone's perfection is, and you can write that into the character if you want, such as this is the kind of lady that I personally would want to meet. And I can make that character in the book and live out, again, it's a fantasy novel. So in a way, your fantasy is going into the book and you're living out that fantasy. So that's a good place for you to get some insight, as it were, to the opposite gender. If you're putting them into books, it's the easiest way I know of anyway. So there are definitely more females in the second book, and I'll be honest about that. They also take on a more commanding role. Now, in the first book, I have a female elf, very strong-willed character, very likable. The second book, I have female rangers, princesses, queens. There's a whole different, but they're all likable characters. There's something about them that you like, and that's the fun part of writing. That's what makes the reader get involved in the story, is they want to know what's going to happen next. Every book I've ever read in my life, the end of the chapter is what makes me want to either put the book down and forget about it or move on to the next chapter. I've read books and just sat down and in one day read the whole book, because every time I got to the end of the chapter, it made me want to go on. So that's something that you really want to try to put into your writing as well. Things that make people want to move to the next story. Some people would call them cliffhangers. I don't necessarily think it's that, because you can leave something and then come back to it as a writer. You don't have to constantly stay in one flow. And another thing that I've enjoyed writing is little, to some people, they'd be called mistakes. I explain those in later books and later chapters, but at the time when you read them, I kind of make the reader scratch their head and go, well, wait a minute, didn't this character die? No, the character didn't die, or yes, the character did die, but it's explained. And everything has an explanation. So you're not leaving the reader wondering what's next, or he never finished that part, or there's a hole in the story. How did you get from point A to point C? Well, obviously through B. So that, to me, in flow of of a story is very, very important. Whenever you write anything, it's got to flow, and the reader's got to enjoy it. I think having fun when you're writing it is important. I will write a chapter at a time whenever I sit down to write. It's not like I'll write 2 pages and walk away. I'll do a whole chapter. If I'm really inspired and it's flowing the way I like it, I'll do 2. And it's just whatever. They can be 8 pages long. They can be 20 pages long. There's no set rules for anything like that. You have to, as long as it fits in the story and it makes sense, that's what matters the most. So when you're writing, don't ever concern yourself with, okay, I've got to have 253 pages. You'll drive yourself nuts, and you'll start filling in things that sounds like mumble jumbo. It doesn't mean anything to the story, has nothing to do with anything. You're just filling pages. And my experience is that most readers don't like that. They want story to continually go and flow, and they want to know what happens all the time. That's the excitement. That's the energy that you as the writer put into the book. And I do believe that in Tomorrow is Just a Day Away, I believe I've caught that energy, and I think that it's in the book, and I think that people will really enjoy it. I think it's a fun read, and those are the best kind to me. I like a book that's fun. I like to be able to laugh at it once in a while. And, when you write something and you start to giggle at your own jokes, or you start laughing at your own character, then you've hit it on the head. Okay. Most of the information or ideas that I get from my books generally come straight out of my head and my imagination. That's why I've been thinking about the 3rd book so long, because I want to make sure that I have the entire story in my head. And based on that, then I can move that story right along, and it can end up exactly where it needs to end up for the next book. And there's a flow. Like I said, it has to happen that way. But the information that I get is generally straight out of my head. That's why it takes me a while sometimes to get started. But usually once I get started, I've already got this, the whole book is already done and written up here. And so it's just a question of getting my fingers to move on a keyboard and put them down and try to make sense of them. When I'm writing, I tend actually not to want to read other books, because I think subconsciously you can affect what you're writing by what you're reading from someone else. And that at times can be kind of weird. It's a weird feeling when you suddenly realize, oh my gosh, wait, that's the same character from the book I was just reading. That's not what I wanted. And you have to go back and fix it. So my writing, personally, it energizes me. I like it. I've never been exhausted by writing. When I'm in the mood, I could stay up all night and just keep plugging it out. It's fun. And the ideas and everything that flows out of my head makes it a great thing for me to do. So I get very energized with that, because I get excited about what I'm doing. The characters I'm creating, that it makes me feel good when I write something that's a paragraph that to me is just perfect. It catches that character or those characters in the exact light that I want everybody to read about them in. And that's the light that I caught them in that particular, you could call it lightning in a bottle if you want, but that's the moment at which I get really excited, and then I want to keep writing. And there's times just out of time, I have to force myself to stop, but it's easier to pick up when I do that versus continually going and exhausting myself or making myself work really hard. Writing should not be work. It's fun to me. And I think to most people, they tell you the same thing. Anybody who writes, it's fun. You enjoy what you create, and you are creating something. I've created an entire world populated with all sorts of beings who eat all sorts of weird foods, that have all sorts of weird pets and creatures, and all of those type of things. And it's all in there, and I've created it. And that is a little bit humbling. It's also very energizing. So yeah, I would definitely say that I'm more energized than I ever am being exhausted or tired. I don't think I've ever gotten tired of writing to where I just want to go, I'll leave it for a few months. The only time I do that is like between books, like I am right now, where I'm formulating the idea first and creating the characters and putting things together is how I want the next one to flow. So that everything, when I start writing it, it'll all make sense to the reader who's read the first two books. The third book will make sense to them. If it doesn't make any sense, it makes it very hard for the story to continue should you want to go on with the fourth, fifth, sixth, all of those type of things. As far as having I don't know if there's, I don't think I've ever run into what they would call writer's block or anything like that. If I have any faults when it comes to my writing, or a kryptonite, as it were, I think that it would be that I've been known to procrastinate, even though I've got it ready to go in my head and I want to start writing. For whatever reason, I just won't. And I don't know if that's that inner voice that we all have that's telling me, no, you're not ready yet, or it's just me being lazy and not wanting to get started, because I know when I do, I'm going to keep going and everything else takes a back burner. So that's kind of a tough subject sometimes to really work out with yourself too, because you don't always stop and think about, okay, I'm going to start writing, and you start writing, and then pretty soon all you're doing is writing, and you start missing out on other things in life that can actually enhance your writing, experiences that you can have, and so on and so forth. So it's that double-edged sword, I guess. But my biggest issue would be procrastination. I think I do that once in a while, but only until I get started. After that, it's sit down at the end of the day after I've done everything else and knock a chapter out. Whether it's 10 pages, 20 pages, doesn't matter to me. I get that chapter done, I'll know right when to end it and right when to pick it up the next day, that I sit down and start writing. But once I start, I don't want to stop. So usually it's every day that I write a chapter, and I try real hard not to go back too often and look at what I've done. Again, I think it influences what I want to do when I read what I've already done. I already know the story and I know how I want it to go. So I don't like to go backwards and forwards, and I try to avoid that. I call it a pitfall myself, but to some writers works out great. I'm just not one of those that can do that. I'll mess up my storyline every time if I do. I've had to start over three times because of that. And that's how I found out that I can't go back and forth like some writers do. So that's kind of tough. But outside of that, I don't, writing fantasy is just like writing any other book, really. I had a question about, how do you create your worlds and stuff? And, to everybody that's different, and I think that the way you can do that is through a couple things. I think when you write, you're writing for the readers. You want the reader to enjoy the book or get something out of the book. So in that respect, you're kind of doing what they want. But readers tend also to like to have things that are original, that they haven't read before. So they get into the book and it becomes, you kind of guide them into it becoming what they want. Maybe that wasn't what they wanted when they first started reading your book, but maybe 6, 7, 8 chapters in, now you've led them where you want them to go, and they followed. And now your original work that comes strictly from yourself, that you haven't plagiarized or gotten ideas off of someone else or anything like that, then that again to me is a joy of writing, because now you've done what you want as far as you're taking the reader on a journey, and that journey is dictated by where you want them to go and how you want them to view the characters, how you want them to read the book. Then it becomes what they want when you can do that. And it's not easy to do. So it takes a lot of work, and there can be some frustration in that. But I try to be as original as I can be. But at the same time, it's a story, and that story has to mean something. So again, that's one of those yin and yang. What works for one person doesn't work for another. But it works for me. I think being original and trying to take someone where I know they want to go. I know they want to go to this point. This is, the characters are going that way. You can't read the book and not want to go in the direction that I'm basically pushing you in. And if that's not your style of reading, then obviously, that's not the book for you. I mean, and I know that sounds kind of, self-defeating, I guess, but I don't view it that way. I think that, everybody has a genre. Everybody has things that they like that they don't like in books. They have, oh, I wish it was more like this. Or one of my favorites has always been people that have read the first book that come up to me and say, whatever you do, don't kill off this character. That character's awesome. Or, why did you do this? And I say, well, you have to wait for the next book to come out to understand why I did this. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. You didn't leave me hanging there anyway. So I know there's going to be an answer to what they want. And the more you do that, the more they want to read your books. And in a fantasy world, it's very, very important to make things as original as you can, because not every place can be Middle Earth. As much as we all would love it to be, it can't be. And it can't be Aragon, and it can't be all of these other realms. It can't be Alice in Wonderland all the time. Every place is different. So you have to create your own world for your readers, because that's what they want. I think most people read a book to escape. If they can escape within the covers of that novel, of that book, then you've won. Then you've done what you've set out to do as a writer. That is the self-satisfaction part that I think writing is all about. It's not easy. As I said when I first started, it's just like talking about yourself. It's not a natural thing to do. Some people, it's harder to write than others. My getting started, like I said, that's always been, okay, once I get going, though, I'm on a roll. And that's pretty much how it is. But I know that the next book will be out in the spring or early summer, one of the two, probably late spring. But it's fun to do. It's fun to do, and it's a labor of love in a lot of ways, and that's the fun part of it. The Wizard's Revenge, which was the first book, and I recommend anybody that's going to get the second book, get the first book first. I mean, it fills in a lot of places. You can read them separately, but you won't totally understand the entire storyline. And when it gets to the end of Tomorrow Is Just a Day Away, you'll understand why the title is what it is, because that is a part of where the book winds up, is what's going on the next day, because this day has been just horrible, but tomorrow's going to be better. It's always better the next day. So I try to incorporate a lot of upbeat, good things. But if you're writing a fantasy book, people are going to die, characters are going to get written off. It comes with the territory. And sometimes you hit that wall where you go, okay, I got to do this, but I really don't want to because it's a character you like. But nope, they don't fit in here anymore. And in order for my other characters to grow and become more powerful or become better or become more solid characters, this one has to go. Now, do I write them out? Do I kill them? That's to be seen when you read the book. So if you have any questions or anything else that you would like to know, I'll be more than happy to try to answer any. This is all kind of new to me. This is only the second time I've done one of these feeds, so I'm not always sure what to say or how to say it. It's a lot easier when somebody asks me a question and then I can go, oh, okay, yeah, I can tell you that. The big thing to remember, and what I try to remind myself is what I've said 100 times, is the result is what the readers want, and you want the readers to be happy, and you want to make it an enjoyable, entertaining, engrossing, mesmerizing novel if you can. You want it to be the best work possible. Triple check it, double check it, quadruple check it. Make sure that everything is just the way you want it to get the reader where you want them to go, to get them in the right mindset for the next chapter or for the next book, however that works out. And that depends on what kind of writing you want to do. Fantasy writing for me is fun. I enjoy it. Energizes me. Like I said, I could do a lot more, and I probably will. Eventually, I may branch off into some other stuff, but right now, I'm happy with what I'm doing. And the Shadow of the Staff series, which on the books, you'll see like this has a Roman numeral 1. And this is a Wizard's Revenge. And the second book is going to have pretty much the same cover. And instead of a Wizard's Revenge, it's going to be Tomorrow is Just a Day Away. And where there's a Roman numeral 1, there'll be a Roman numeral 2 on the spine of the book. And I've decided to stay with the same cover because I think it captures what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to achieve. And the outward appearance of a book is just as important, if not more so, than the inside. Because what's the first thing we all do when we pick up a book? We grab the book and we flip it over and we read synopsises and what's the author all about and what's the story about. And then we may open it and flip through a few pages and kind of look at it. But the outward appearance is very important. This definitely screams fantasies. It screams dragons, wizards, castles, and much, much more. So, there's so much of that in there, and a few plot twists and some other things that I'm very proud of the fact I was able to do it, and I hope that people to read the book will like it as much as I do, and that's. Again, that's right up there with talking about yourself when you start saying, I really like the book, because of course I like it. I wrote it, but I think it would be a book that I would buy anyway, even if I didn't write it. And I would definitely go back and read further books because I like the characters. I like the way they grow. I like, in some cases, the way they change. They start out as being one way and wind up being another. And it's a total surprise. And that, I like that kind of stuff. That is fantasy writing to me. at its best, is when you can move the characters around and change whether they're good, whether they're evil. However you want to do that. It's all up to you as a fantasy writer, how you want to go with that. You don't have to follow any set formula. You don't have to make it Middle Earth. You don't have to make it, Babes in Toyland. It doesn't matter. It's what's in your mind and what you want to do as a writer that makes you just that, a writer. It makes you do those things because it's your world. You created it, and you got people that move down the road with you. And it's been fun. Like I said, I've had comments on the first book from people that have read it, and they're okay. We're ready for the next one. When's it coming out? And that's a great feeling. It's a great feeling, but it's also a lot of work to do. It doesn't come natural. I think the only reason the first book for me was as easy as it was, as I said, it came right on the heels of my mother passing away, and therefore I was kind of driven by a different feeling and a different emotion than just the writing. It was kind of I'm going to finish something because I promised my mother I would do that. And I've been notorious for starting things, getting to a point where I'm satisfied, and then I stop. And it's just like this series of books right now. I'm in. I've got to finish the story now. There's no way I could just say, you know what, had enough. I don't want to write anymore. Nothing. No, I can't do that. I'm in too far now. I've got to finish the story for all the readers, and more importantly for myself, because it's my baby. It's my world. I've created it, and therefore I want to see it through. And I'm not really sure what the ending is going to be yet, but I have hopefully 3 or 4 more books to do that in. And by then I'll figure it out. But I have some ideas where it's going to go, but those will all show up and be transparent as the books go on. Tomorrow is just a day away is a perfect example of following up with one book with another and connecting them and changing the script, as it were, and making things just a little bit different than you would expect, and then have other things happen that you would never have expected. And it makes it a lot more fun, and it makes it a little more difficult to write, but it makes it a lot more fun to read. So I like doing that. But I was originally going to be here, I think, for a half hour, and it looks like I've been jaw-jacking with you here for, oh my gosh, over 48 minutes. No wonder my mouth is dry. I do hope that you've enjoyed and gotten something out of what I've had to say, and I'm sure you got a little bit more insight into me, at least, as to my ideas on writing, where I see things going, and how I got to where I'm at. I think that when it comes to writing, the sky's the limit. You can go as far as you want to go. It doesn't matter. It's up to you as the writer. That's the fun part of it. And there's nothing to me more rewarding than when somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I finished your book and I absolutely loved it." And you're like, "Oh, well, okay, thank you." I mean, again, until you've experienced that a couple of times, it's such a good feeling. And so I encourage anybody that wants to write, get out there and do it. Even if it's just short stories, whatever it may be, get out there and write as much as you can about anything you want to write about, and enjoy yourself with it. And if you write things just for yourself, put them away for a while, get them back out, look at them later, and it goes, "Oh, well, I could have done this instead of this." get lots of good ideas that way. I did that with a lot of my music when I first started writing. I would start a song and put it away and then come back to it a few weeks later and scratch words out and change this sentence and all that kind of stuff. And I think writers do the same thing regardless of what they're writing. Poems, everybody does. I mean, like I said, the exception is I try not to go back and look at what I've already written unless I need to refresh my mind on something because I want to do this. And in the back of my mind, I think, wait a minute, didn't I do something like that before? Or, only way to find out is to go back, crack open the book, look at it, search it on a manuscript if you have it on a computer or something, and refresh your mind. You try to be as original as you can be and enjoy that, because that's worked for me. And I think that's what readers want, is originality as much as possible. Especially, with the kind of writing that I'm doing, which is fantasy adventure. That's exactly what you get, is you get fantasy and adventure, and it's fun. So I enjoy it, and I'm very, very happy with the outcomes that I've had so far and the feedback I received. So, it's, again, go out, check out the website, www.mahaddadnovels.com. There's ways to contact me. There's links to where to buy books. Amazon, Books A Million, Barnes and Noble, all those places. You can get them online. There's a blog, a whole lot of information about me. There's all sorts of overviews and synopsises about the book. So if you really want to know what's going on, you can read the back cover before you even get to see it if you want, by going to the website. And you can shoot me an email personally as well. There's an email site there that you can just type it in and I'll get it. And, with any luck, I'll be able to get back to you. And right now, I think that's quite possible. But if I get real busy with emails, it may take a day or two. But I try to get in there and look at things as often as I can. So I'm working on learning how to use Twitter. I think that writers need to learn how to use as much social media as they can, whether it's Facebook, TikTok, whatever it may be. If you feel comfortable with it and it helps you promote your work, please, by all means, get an account, set it up, use it. Get people following you on Twitter so you can just go out there and say, the next book is going to be out on this day, or this silly thing happened, or I'm doing a book signing somewhere. You can put it out there for the whole world. All of those, Facebook, like I said, they're all great tools, and they're just that, they're tools. Kind of like the thesaurus. Excuse me. But that in a dictionary, it's the same thing. It's just get your word out there. So the more people that know about it, the better off it is. And the more people that read your work, the more you're going to want to write. So that's what works for me. I enjoy it. And then I get to do wonderful things like this, which I'm just about out of gas with, to be honest with you. But it's been one of the longest half hours of my life. No, I've actually enjoyed it very, very much. I love some of the questions that I've got. I really appreciate it. A special thanks goes out to Reader Magnet and all the folks out there that are putting this on. And remember, they're going to be around still next week doing it some more. So I'm going to be back doing some more talking. I seriously doubt I'll do another hour, but I do enjoy it, and I know they're going to let me come back and do some stuff for them. So I'm kind of at a, this is where I kind of need to leave it, I think. I don't have a whole lot more. I could show you the book again for, like the third or fourth time, and that may trick your memory a little bit more, but just remember, it's the shadow of the staff. Tomorrow is just a day away, which is by all means the truth, and it's that way for all of us. So, enjoy. Get the first book if you haven't gotten it yet. Get it, read it, then read the second one, and when the third one comes out, hopefully I'll be able to surprise and enlighten and do all the good things that readers like. And that's to turn the page and we're ready. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and say goodbye. Again, I am M.A. HADDAD, the shadow of the staff. Tomorrow is just a day away. And I thank you very much for your time and attention. And I wish every single one of you the best. Thank you and goodbye.